Hey, what's going on, people? I wanted to share a story with everyone, and I'm kind of deflicted between uh, the so-called matter because it's like, on one hand, I see it from one view, and on the other hand, I see the possible danger that could have happened. And it's about this mother. She was homeless, single parent. Her name was Shanesha Taylor, and excuse me, she had a job interview. Remind you, she was homeless, and she had two kids. One was a 2-year old, one was a 6-month old, and she got a job interview. Had nobody to watch the kids. I can understand that, her being a single mother and being homeless, and she went into the interview and left the kids inside of her Dodge Durango. Now, she didn't have the windows all the way up where the kids couldn't breathe. She did crack the windows, and that's how all this really occurred, because I believe the 6-month-old started crying, and people, I guess, in the parking lot or the surrounding areas heard the child crying, so they called the police. And when the police came, they found the two children inside the car, and come to find out, she had went inside of the building or store, whatever she was interviewing for an interview, and she left the kids in there unsupervised. So he locked her up, and she's recently been released on bond, but they're trying to charge her for suspicion of child abuse. And, part of me, I look at this from both different sides. Part of me is like, okay, she left two young children that, don't really have too much of the mental capacity to be able to handle themselves if something dangerous was to happen. And if it had been some pervert coming up, and kidnapped the kids, I think a lot of people have a different tune to this story. But on the flip side, I look at it like this was a woman who went somewhere to try to, make a better way for her children. She was a single parent. She didn't go into a store, to shop. She didn't go in the mall nowhere bullshitting. She didn't go somewhere to see some raggedy man or just lollygag around. She went somewhere to go on an interview for a job because, again, she was homeless, and it's her responsibility to feed those children along with the man that created these children. But we're gonna leave that to the side right now. But I grew up in a single parent household, and I remember, my mom, having to hold down things a lot of times by herself. I remember I had to grow up and be responsible at a very young age. I have a younger sister. I remember I had to be the father a lot of times and make sure she was protected, make sure that we did certain things to make sure the overall household was taken care of. So I know what it's like to grow up in those type of conditions in certain communities, and I know what it's like for single mothers or single fathers out here, which is not always talked about, but we do have single fathers out here that are holding everything down by themselves. And a lot of people might look at this story and say, well, she was being neglectful as a parent and she didn't make the right decisions. But if you never grew up or been in a single parent household, shut the fuck up, point blank period, because I think there's a limitation that people can make judgment when you don't understand somebody's situation. And I've had hard times in my life, just me being an adult or me growing up in a single parent household, and I saw a lot of things that my mother had to go through, or the certain issues she would deal with because she was holding everything down by herself. And my mother was a great mother, took care of responsibilities, and I will forever owe her for that. But we have people who point the finger and make certain judgments, but they don't understand certain situations. And it's almost like when white people try to tell black people how it is to be black. You don't understand my struggle. You don't understand what it's like to get up every day and walk outside your door and don't know if you're going to come back. You don't know what it's like to go on a job interview and you have to be 10 times better than all your counterparts because you are a black woman or because you are a black male. So if you don't come from these certain situations, you don't understand the full situation that's going on. You don't understand the outs and ins and the ins and outs. So part of me is like, I do understand that it would have been an unfortunate situation if, let's say, some creepy ass child molester would have came up and abducted the children, or maybe one of the kids got outside the car, ran the street and got hit. So I do understand the dangers that these kids were in by being in the car unsupervised. But at the same time, I give her the benefit of the doubt because she was doing something to better her life as well as her children. She was trying to provide for her children, and she was put in a certain situation to where nobody would watch her children. But what do? Do you sit on your ass and say, well, I'm not going to go to the job interview that can possibly get me out of this situation of being homeless because I have nobody to watch my children? Or do I take a risk and say, hey, let me crack the window, let me lock the doors, let me try to tell the 2-year-old, the older child, hey, be calm, take care of your younger sister, but just be chill, don't cause any commotion, and I go in here and knock this interview out so I can make a better way for my family. So I look at it from that point of view too. And I just want to get everybody's opinion on this. What do you feel about this situation? Because me, I looked at it from both situations, but I have to give this woman the benefit of doubt because she was trying to make a way for her children. Was it dangerous? Yeah, it was dangerous to a certain extent, but you have to understand this woman's mindset and her living conditions. And I find it to be outrageous when we have people who don't understand certain situations and they try to make judgment. They try to say what exactly is going on. And we all can give our observations or our judgments or sit back and look at things and analyze it. But at the same time, I think there's a limitation for certain people when you do not come out of certain situations. If you've never been homeless, you're not going to understand what this woman's been through. And I've been homeless in my life, so I understand her situation. I've had to sleep in the car before. I grew up in a single parent house, so I understand this woman's lifestyle. But that's my point of view of it, and that's the way I feel about it. I feel like they went a little extra with this. But you guys give me your feedback. I want to hear what everybody has to say. Whether you agree with me or you kind of split between it, or you think this woman was totally in the wrong. But I'm out. Peace.